Let's go ahead and open up this Collab notebook where we have two lists, miles walked and miles driven. Now, you can imagine a scenario where you would want to add these two lists together by element. Perhaps each represents a day, and you want to know the total miles per day. We'll go ahead and first store the lists, and then let's just try miles walked plus miles driven, and let's see what happens. Will it work? Will we get an error? Let's find out. Okay, so I press Shift Enter, and you can see what it does. Okay, it does something interesting. It concatenates the two lists to make one longer list, but not quite what we want. So how do we get this to do what we want? Which is simply to add them element by element. Do we have to do some fancy code for this? Well, you could code it up, but I can tell you the best way to do it is by using NumPy arrays. NumPy arrays are like powerful. They turn lists into these mathematical powerhouses. Okay, let's just start by turning miles walked into a NumPy array. So how do we do that? Well, first we need to import NumPy, the library, import NumPy as NP. Okay, now we need to use np dot, okay, we're gonna use the library, and array. Okay, that's how you get a NumPy array, np.array. Now, if we convert miles walked into that, well, that will do it. Okay, it's going to convert this into a NumPy array. Now, what we want to do here is be able to reference it, and so we have a choice here. Either we can just rename it and say, fine, we'll be done with the other list, or we can put np in front of it to signify, hey, or at the end of it, that this is a NumPy array. What I mean is as such. Okay, now I don't want to confuse you with the extra np's here. And so let's just convert this straight out. Let's be done with the previous list into a NumPy array. And press Shift Enter to store it. Okay, and now if you go ahead and look at it, like just type it in and press Shift Enter, you can see it says array in front of it. Okay, so well, that's kind of weird. And then if we check its type, what is the type of miles walked? Is this still a list or is this something different? Press Shift Enter. Well, you can see we call this NumPy array for short. It's NumPy in-dimensional array. Okay, so what's the point of this, right? Why is this helpful? Well, let's first just look at it in isolation. Okay, so miles walked is a NumPy array, right? So what kind of methods do we have here? If we press dot, look at this. You have a lot more than you have for Python lists. Okay. I do not know how to use a lot of these, but there are some classics like mean. Okay, you can get the mean of a numerical list as a NumPy array in one line of code. Press Shift Enter. There's the mean, average miles walked for this week. What else do we get? Miles underscore walked. You saw sorry, not in parentheses, dot, right? Dot will access all the methods for NumPy arrays. You can see that there's a lot here. There's max and min. There's reshaping, which could come in handy. There's sorting, summing, which we've had. Well, what if we wanted, the median isn't in here, which is almost surprising, but in p.median, if we're in the NumPy library, can you take the median of a NumPy array? And the median recalls the number in the middle if they're in order. Okay, you can, and it's 3.2. So to get the mean and the median of a list, by converting them to NumPy arrays first, this is probably the most efficient way of doing it. Okay, but what if we want to do a conversion like out of miles into feet? I don't know how many feet I walked. Well, it's 5,280 feet in a mile. And so if I do this, can I do this? Can I do times miles walked? Okay, like that's interesting. In the concatenation world of lists, you might get something 5,280 times. But if you do this, look at this, it actually goes inside and multiplies each element of the NumPy array by that number. Okay, just to give you a little preview, when you're doing data science using Python, the data frames, like the data itself, is actually stored as NumPy arrays because it allows for this sort of smooth mathematical manipulation that lists do not allow you for. I think of them as sort of mathematically empowered lists, in which you can do almost anything with them using the NumPy library within reason. So if we go back up to the original question, it was, can we add these two together? Well, we converted miles walked into a NumPy array. We also need to convert miles driven into a NumPy array. Okay, so let's redefine it, miles driven, and then we use the NumPy library in p.array, okay? And inside of array, we're gonna put now miles driven, right? And recall that we can do this because when you make assignments in Python, right, it's left to right. So we're assigning, something to the variable miles driven. What is it? Well, it's taking the current value, which is a list of miles driven, and it's actually converting it into a NumPy array. Okay, so after we do that, okay, it goes ahead and stores. Now if we add miles driven plus miles walked, okay, you will get the nice total miles. It's not a concatenation. It is your total miles that you've walked. And you could certainly save that as a list, right? So we could say total miles equals that if we like, and then you can always print it out to show it again. Okay, and you can see it doesn't show the array part. If you print it out, it just looks like a regular list, which is nice. And finally, now when we added two NumPy arrays together, you can imagine it's a NumPy array. And so let's get the total miles using a NumPy array method. We can use the global function sum, but we can certainly use .sum on NumPy arrays. And there you also get the total number of miles over the 5 days. So NumPy arrays are super useful, super powerful, and in effect, they turn your list into mathematical superheroes. So use them.